Say what you will about Honda, but that company has always been known for pushing the bar in technology, whether we like it or not, whether we even appreciate it or not. You could say Honda has been largely responsible for getting riders on bikes in the first place, starting with the Cub, and what, in whatever that was, 50 something, 60 something. Honda has strived to make motorcycling more accessible to the masses. The VFR 1200 with the DCT was introduced, which made shifting a little bit easier by pushing buttons similar to what the DCT systems in cars are all about. Its latest technology is what you see behind me. In fact, it's called the E-clutch technology, and it's on the CBR 650R behind me that I'm gonna ride in just a minute. But what is the E-clutch technology, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked that question because I'm gonna tell you about it. So sit back, relax, let's learn more about Honda's E-clutch technology.
Support the brands that support us.
This and the CB650R, the naked version of this bike, are the first models in the US with the E-clutch technology. So the engine itself is something you would be familiar with if you know the 650 CBRs from Honda. It's the same 650cc inline 4, but all the magic is housed. There's electronic motors in here, and it's this setup here that only adds 4.5 pounds to the bike compared to a DCT setup that's a lot more complex. This is a much simpler design. So the start of it all is you start the bike and you don't need the clutch. You can put the bike in first gear without ever touching the clutch and you can just ride. It's a very simplified way of riding a motorcycle. However, you can see there's still a clutch cable here. You can override the system by pulling in the clutch lever, and you can shift like you would the old-fashioned way by using your hand on the clutch if you want. This is more of a way to just get familiar with the system out here in the parking lot. We'll do some laps on the racetrack just to get comfortable. Then we'll go head out on the street to see what this thing is like to ride. I appreciate Honda's willingness to keep pushing this tech forward, but what is it like to ride? Let's go find out. The bike is in neutral, and this indicator right here with the A says the electronic clutch is on and activated. And so what we do is we just start the bike like normal. Okay, don't touch the clutch at all. Just put the bike in first gear, like that. No clutch, and we just ride away. Start. Just giving it some gas. I can feel some clutch slippage as I'm getting off the line, but then it's fully engaged pretty quickly. Probably smoother than I would be doing it if I was using the clutch like normal. And especially if you're starting off, this is way smoother than if you're like really dragging that clutch lever a lot. So I'll try it again. Let's just say the light turns red, stopped. Now the light turns green. I'm not sure if you could hear the revs pick up, like it was slipping the clutch, like you would normally. But I can definitely feel some clutch slippage as I'm leaving the line, just like you would naturally with the clutch lever. Now, you can also do it with the clutch. So that's the other thing too. Because the clutch is engaged, now that I put my hand on the clutch, the clutch lever itself is flapping around because electronically the clutch is already engaged. So the actual clutch lever is loose because the clutch is engaged. Now, if I pull the clutch all the way in, you see that light turns off, and now I'm back to manual mode. And so now I launch the bike manually, but that also means I can stall the bike too, just like that. And now the screen goes wonky because I've stalled the bike. So yes, you can still stall the bike if you go back into manual mode. So now you can see I'm back into automatic mode. I'm back the way we were. Back into first gear. You know what? No. I'm going to pull the clutch in, go back to manual mode. Now the system will reset into automatic E-clutch mode after I let go of the clutch and I'm riding for 5 seconds. So let's start riding. And see? It's already back on. So I'm riding, shifting the second. Wow, that was super smooth. Back down to first, super smooth. So yeah, that 1-2 shift is, especially when you're not at full throttle, when you're at part throttle, that 1-2 shift is a lot smoother than I've definitely done with the hand clutch, and it's smoother than I've seen on a lot of quick shifter systems. So let's get a feel for this thing at a little bit faster pace, like the racetrack. All right, let's give it a shot. So I gotta remind y'all that we're not on the racetrack here to be setting lap times. This is to get comfortable with the technology on a closed course environment. So that 1-2 shift is extremely smooth. So shifting while leaned over can sometimes be a challenge, especially with smoothness. I think I've just started using this system, but I can already see a trend here with the verbiage I'll be using a lot on this ride, and that's smooth. A lot of this comes down to shifting can be clunky, well, just not smooth, abrupt, and that can really make riding a motorcycle just a little bit more difficult. This system helps with that tremendously. You can still feel a little bit of harshness going through the gears. That's just natural for the cars. Now Honda have said there will be many more models to come with the E-clutch technology. And again, I've only been riding this bike for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And I can see why. You're not really losing anything from the riding experience. You're still shifting your own gears, it's just easier. The fun part, that is shifting your own gears and feeling attached mechanically to your motorcycle, is still there. It's just the danger or the fear of stalling a bike, well, mainly stalling the bike, is not there. And imagine, I mean, yeah, I'm on a racetrack right now, which is probably not the environment for this thing, but it'll do it. Okay, so now I'm in fourth gear, and I'm gonna come to a complete stop. Look. And clearly I didn't stall the bike, but it's telling me, hey man, you gotta shift down into first gear, you're way too high. But I can still move, and I got off to a launch in fourth gear. That's pretty cool. What about sixth gear? Will it work in sixth gear? Let's see. So I'm stopped. Clearly the bike is still running, but I'm in sixth gear. And it'll launch. I'm in full gas, so it'll launch, just not very quickly. Let's try it again. So, 6th gear, it's saying, hey dude, you gotta be in first, you're way too high of a gear. But, I don't care. Say, I don't want to shift into first gear for whatever reason. I'm gonna give it full gas. And yeah, it's slow off the line, obviously. But I'm going, I'm moving the entire time. So, yeah, this just makes it easier. Okay, so here we are on a street ride. We've already started. As you can see, I'm already in 5th gear, coming to a stop here. And yeah, slow, but I didn't stall the bike. So in an emergency situation, or I don't know, you forget to downshift for whatever reason, and you find yourself in a situation where you're in the wrong gear to stop, you can just go, twist it and go, and not worry about stalling the bike. But this overall street setting is where I think this e-clutch technology will really prove itself. Now, earlier on the track session, I did try it in full manual mode, and the difference was not a big difference, but there was a difference, especially coming out of slower speed corners. In full manual mode, it felt like the power delivery was smoother. There was less clutch slip. It was more direct feel in the e-clutch mode, especially coming out of slower corners. I guess it felt a little bit like there was a tiny bit of clutch slipping happening, which muted the power going to the back tire. In full manual mode, is a much more direct feel, but I mean, you really had to be paying attention to that to really notice. One of the things Honda was talking about with this e-clutch technology is it reduces that shift shock in between gears when you change over. And you for sure felt it. If you've ridden a bike without any quick shifters at all, just fully manual transmissions, shifting from first to second can be a bit of a jarring experience just because of the gap in the gear ratios between first and second gear. That's not a case here. Even with the quick shifter, jumping from first to second gear, sometimes there can be that surge, that jump, that pop, that shock between first and second gear, even with the quick shifter, unless you rev the crap out of it to get it where its proper operating range. Just now, that shift from first to second gear was at, what, 6,000 RPM? Not very high at all. And it was smooth. There wasn't much of a lurch, a jump, a shock. That was super impressive. Now, I know when people hear about new technology with motorcycles, especially when it comes to how you interact with the motorcycle, perception is usually negative to start out. We're usually afraid of new technology, afraid of new things, and skeptical of new tech at the same time. I was too, but the beauty with the e-clutch system, like I've said over and over in this video now, is it doesn't take away from the traditional way you ride a motorcycle. If you want to use the clutch and the shift lever like you always have before, you totally can. You can turn all this off and just ride the motorcycle like you always have before. That being said, doing that takes away from the experience altogether. You can still miss a shift, because I did. I got my foot underneath there and I didn't hit it hard enough, and I was stuck in that previous gear I thought I was getting out of. So all the same foibles, all the same downfalls sort of apply, but the upside is so much bigger, right? You don't really have to worry about stalling the bike unless you pull in the clutch and then let go of it. You can literally not touch the clutch at all for your entire ride, and the bike will stay on. That's a good thing, right? You don't want to cut up to a red light, have it turn green, and like fumble around and drop the bike. I mean, you probably shouldn't be doing that anyway, but just imagine the newer rider getting their feet wet with this sport. having the brain space not to worry about stalling and just focusing on riding, I mean, how is that not a bad thing? I can see this being a good thing if you're riding two up, especially if you're riding two up a hill. All you gotta do is worry about the throttle. So there's lots of upsides here, not really so much downsides. So you're talking about a 4.5 pound increase over the standard version, which we're not getting in the US anymore. For 2024 onwards, this is the version of the CBR and the CB650 that we're getting. And at first I was a bit concerned about that, but after riding it, it's not a big deal. The price hasn't changed. The CBR is $98.99. The CB is $93.99. By the time you watch this video, bikes will be in dealers. So there's a lot of upsides, very little downsides. And yeah, ultimately it's just a way to be more confident on a motorcycle, which in turn will get more butts on seats, which in turn will just increase our sport. That's all a good thing. So this begs the question, what happens with the DCT in Honda's lineup? You know, I think I could still see a position for the DCT in Honda's touring line of motorcycles, and here's why. Because with the DCT system, if you want to, you can still go fully automatic and just ride along. With the E-clutch system, you have to shift gears with your foot the old-fashioned way, whether you turn the system on or off. If you keep it in one gear, it's gonna stay in that gear the entire time. So there's separate use cases for the DCT and the E-clutch system. To me, where I see the E-clutch system really benefiting people could be in the smaller displacement motorcycle segment, which is generally where newer riders come up through. It's a bit of a mixed bag because on one hand, with the E-clutch system on the smaller motorcycles, a new rider can learn the ins and outs of motorcycling without fear of stalling. On the other hand, I still think you do need to perfect the act of letting the clutch out and finding that friction zone to be a proper, you know, motorcyclist, at least to get that feel, that sensation down. But, you know, with the E-clutch, you can turn it all off and you can still use the clutch. So it's kind of a no-brainer. This is certainly not the only bike the E-clutch will be on. Honda has already said this E-clutch technology is gonna filter out to several different models in the future. So be on the lookout for that. And also be on the lookout for my written review of the E-clutch, the CB650, the CBR650 on Motorcycle.com. There you'll find more information, some diagrams about how this all works, and just more pictures and more fun stuff to learn and more of my thoughts in the written form. So, all right, everyone, signing off from somewhere in Georgia. Thanks everyone for watching. Again, be sure to check out Mo for my written review, and that's the Honda E-clutch system in a nutshell. As always, ride safe, and I'll see you later.